Welcome to Sub Rosa. What do you got, Eugene?
This is great. Conference call, massive conference call. 20 people in the conference call, engineering department, and this just happened. And one of the guys in the conference call loses his mind. Not literally, though possibly, figuratively. He gets a little pushback, which is common. You know, you give people three options, they choose one. You can't get hurt about the other two. And the guy does a functional equivalent of throwing his hands up and going, "You don't need me. You know what? My input here, I'm pretty sure that my input here is not valuable at all. So go ahead, do whatever you want." And somebody says like, "Well, Jim, okay, that's not very helpful, but why don't we?" And then Jim interrupts, goes, "Why ask me? I clearly don't know anything." So this is a major corporation, like a massive corporation, whose logo, it's Google. We don't have to parse words here. And the guy fundamentally pulls an Achilles, says, "I'm taking my toys. I'm sitting here by my tent and screw yous." And some boss listening on the line, who was part of this call, said, "Well, since Jim has nothing to offer in regards to this kind of iteration of the, the layout, we should end the meeting," which I don't think is what Jim was expecting. And they did end the meeting. Now, what happens to Jim at this point is something I'm dying to know. Clearly, Jim is in a position where he is in that not give a damn position. And he is, go ahead, fire. Some athlete once said, "Play me or trade me," which is fire me or, and so the person who was in the meeting, who actually wants Jim's job, was like, should I advance and my advice to him was, I think Jim is a self-correcting problem. I think you should let it run its course. And at some point, they'll come to you. But I don't, I'm sure that people who support Jim, who will be unhappy that he's left, let them choose you. Do not get involved in this bit of bad behavior. I mean, it's fundamentally a very public tantrum. And, though I like straight talking people, I'm not a big fan of public tantrums. So that is my...
Was this a audio only call or was video involved as well?
It was a video call. However, as it is with Zoom or some of these other Google's clients, you could choose to have your face,
Right.
You could use a background. And so I believe Jim, because I did ask that. I go, was Jim frothing or was he laughing? It was, I don't know. He had some avatar up. So
something.
Yeah.
So what I would suggest is that if the question is from your friend who's saying like, "Hey, how do I make my move since I want to get Jim's job?" is I agree, don't do anything direct. But I think one of the key things that you can do indirectly is be very skillful in meetings. Right? What that means is if most people have their video on, have your video on.
Yeah.
Be welcoming. Be the anti-Jim. Right.
Right.
And that will show, the compare and contrast. And some ways that you can do this are building on other people's ideas, right? Like it's always good, particularly if your friend is a man, to give credit to women who have said something. Right. So, I just want to, I really liked Laura's idea and I'd like to build on that by suggesting da-da-da-da. Or, I want to go back to something Dana said last time, which was, right. So you can signify in a lot of subtle ways that you are a team player, that you can manage your emotions, that you are an adult in the room and all of those things. And I think especially, like working out things that Jim didn't do, right? Like, that's an interesting point. You're not saying interesting doesn't mean good, bad. I agree with you. That's an interesting point. Let me think about that and get back to you. Right. That's what Jim should have done. Right? That's what Jim should have done. And one thing I'll say too, and I say this a lot to clients, and I don't think anybody's ever taken me up on this, but knowing how to facilitate a meeting is an absolute superpower.
Yeah.
And I learned in graduate school, I actually read a book. It's called Facilitating with Ease. And it is expensive. It's a textbook. Worth every penny. I have read that book over and over again. I refer to it because what it talks about is facilitating is just making sure that a group of people can move from start to action. And you learn, when you learn about facilitating, you learn how to deal with conflict. You learn how to, was that the most skillful way for the, senior most person to react to that? I don't know. I'm guessing he probably didn't have a lot of training in facilitating, because facilitating, you need to deal with conflict. You need to deal with people who are going off in another direction. You need to learn how to run a room. And when you know how to run a room, everybody wants you running their meetings. Right? Everybody wants you running their meetings, and it becomes something and it gives you all the trappings of power, but very subtly, right? Because good facilitation becomes almost invisible, right? You're not, it's like kind of herding cattle, there's just little adjustments here and there. And so that's something I would suggest.
That Stalin was a secretary.
Really?
Yeah, he was the party secretary.
Interesting.
Clearly, it's Marxism. We don't have any leaders here. Yeah, sure. Okay.
But so that's what I would suggest. If he really wants Jim's job, let Jim's situation will sort itself out. You're right. That will correct itself. Jim will either be moved to a place where he doesn't get to talk to other people, or he'll be given some sort of the help that he needs. Yeah. But the best way to show up in those environments is to be the helpful engineer. Be the one that builds on other people's ideas. Be the one that brings something else to the party than Jim. Be the anti-Jim.
Right. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
All right.
If you want us to answer your question on Sub Rosa, send us an email, WTF@badbossbrief.com. Bye.